Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. This is our weekly rugby podcast. Delighted to have Liam O'Brien with me, resident podcast pundit, along with Joe McCarthy from Irish Abroad. You might know him with soccer, but Joe's a very avid rugby union fan, and I know Liam and Joe, you were both at the Aviva Stadium to witness a comprehensive win for Ireland. How are things?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me on. Doing pretty well. I'm just about defrosted from sitting on the sideline in the lower east stand on Saturday afternoon, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Yeah, good. How are things with you anyway, Liam?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Still kind of recovering yourself. That's really the sign of the Six Nations weekend and a good celebration afterwards. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I suppose just to start, lads, full house at the Aviva Stadium. What was it like being back in a full house? Not a lot of Welsh fans around Dublin the eve of the game. What were your overriding emotions probably before and during the game, really? Joe, you might kind of kick off with yourself.
It was a relief, to be honest. I mean, it's I was thinking just when I was walking up to the stadium, when was the last time I was at a rugby match? Because I did manage to go to a few football games in the second half of last year, and I think, and I'm open to correction on this by anyone who knows me, but I think the last time I was at a live rugby match was the St. Stephen's Day game between Munster and Leinster in 2019. So it's been a long wait before I was able to see an oval ball game again. And look, when the crowds returned for the autumn internationals last year, it actually coincided with my wedding, so I was unable to get the permission slip to either leave that or to leave the honeymoon to go and watch a game in Aviva Stadium. But it was a massive relief to be finally back in a full Aviva Stadium as well. I think the conditions, I don't know how it looked or how it sounded on telly, but the conditions I think might have dampened the crowd a little bit. But in the build-up to kick-off, the anthems, the Welsh fans, that great chorus that they always bring, definitely lifted the atmosphere a little bit. And then to hear our own Avian and Ireland's call, yeah, it was good to be back. That's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, good stuff, Liam. What about yourself?
Yeah, I see. The Ireland Wales games always, the Welsh really bring a big crowd over, and it's just always going to be a good weekend anyway. But it's just the whole walk up to the stadium I thought was very special. It was the first time that I was back there since Ireland Wales in, I'd say, 2019. Yeah, I think it was February 2019. So that was the last time I was there. And I actually sang the three anthems, if you want to call it, Mark. I gave a go at it anyway, And and just I thought, particularly in the first half, the crowd was really had plenty to shout about, basically.
Indeed, yeah, because we can launch right into it, guys. I mean, such a dominance display from Ireland, but I mean, I have a headline here: Return of the Mac Hansen. Welcome to Test Match Rugby. And I don't know if there was a bit of scouting going on in terms of Rhys Hammett before the game. There had been reports on the TV, particularly on RT coverage, that Rhys Hammett had basically limped off of warm-up. But in fairness to Mac Hansen, what an impression to make a 35-metre gain, setting up the opening try and being fairly instrumental in Bundee's opening try. Joe, what was your kind of general reaction?
That was actually on the opposite side of the pitch to where I was. I was in the lower east stand, and I was expecting it to be kept fairly tight in the early contest between the two teams. We had such a fantastic set of results in the autumn internationals, whereas Wales not as good but still pretty good. And I was thinking, on top of that, their club sides are not doing great in Europe this season, whereas we have all four teams in the still in European competition after the Six Nations ends. So I did expect Ireland to win, and I did expect Ireland to play well before kickoff. I didn't say that because I didn't want to jinx it. But to get such an early score, and I think it really surprised everyone. and Hansen, to the manner born, his first experience of international Test rugby, and it looks like he's been playing it all his life. When you consider that he hasn't even gotten into double figures for Connacht yet, and even some people were saying, was it too early to parachute him into the national setup? You'd have to wonder, like, why didn't he play in November? And then Aki again. People were saying, did he deserve the starting position? But he opened the score and he did exactly what he can do. He got points on the board straight away, and I think it set him up for the rest of the game. I felt he probably ran Hansen close for man of the match, but to be honest, I think there was 5 or 6 different contenders for that. I mean, Conway with 2 tries. I thought Sexton again was imperious. I've always hated playing Wales because you never know how it's going to go, and I hate playing Wales knowing that you need a win. But this was a poor Welsh side, as poor as I've seen in a long time. And I watched the under-20s game the night before, and I don't know if it's just a blip because Wales are the current champions, but their senior team looked very poor, and they're going to be up against Scotland next weekend, and their under-20s, that was a training session for the Ireland side. To be honest, the biggest disappointment on the day on Saturday was the late try from Basham. I genuinely felt we were going to walk out of Aviva Stadium having kept Wales scoreless.
Exactly, Joe. Liam, what stood out for you on this Irish performance?
Well, again, like as Joe alluded there, from the off, like Hansen, just that scintillating run up the left, and then to be involved pretty much soon after in whipping out that pass to Aki, and just every time he got the ball, actually in that match, he made meters very, very clearly. What stood out to me, I honestly, I think Furlong and Byrne, in terms of their passing, in terms of the Irish ruck ball, was like just so quick. It just you can't have any defence when you have a ball that quick during the game. And I think that the back row were just immense for Ireland. Van der Fleer is a small guy, but his carrying was brilliant, and his link-up play as well. In terms of Sexton, I mean, Sexton had almost a complete game. Yeah, he did have those 2 early misses, but his overall play, the loop was back, and the loop was working as well.
Exactly.
And Ringrose and Aki were just scintillating in midfield as well.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't fault Sexton too much, looking for points on the board. Like, you said it, Joe, yourself, trying to defrost from the Aviva on Saturday, but it looked to me as if it was a very squally, windy day in Dublin, and when that wind whips around the Aviva Stadium, that ball can go anywhere, so I wouldn't be too guilty on Sexton. But I really thought the front 5 performance from Aaron Reid had set the tone in the first 20-30 minutes. I thought the scrum, the set piece, particularly Wales struggled all ends up on the line out, even to secure even primary line out possession. They were 66% on the line outs, but I just thought pack wise, the front 5, given Ken Owens, Alwyn Jones being out of the side, Ireland asked a question early, and really from a Welsh perspective, the front 5 as a unit, I thought absolutely capitulated on the day. And as well as that, the quick ruck ball was exposing Tompkins and particularly Josh Adams in defensive shifts, really. I mean, I think Adams wise 3 penalties conceded, 2 missed tackles. There was a yellow card as well for, the Sexton tackle. I don't know what you thought about that one, guys, but thought that may have been a 50-50 call for a red card. I don't know what your reaction was.
Well, it was at the opposite end of the pitch to where I was, so when I saw it, it was on as it was being replayed on the big screen when they called for the TMO, and the opinion of everyone, of myself and everyone around me, was that that's a red. Like, there was, and again, look, this is just how it looked to me. There was no duty of care going into contact There was no attempt to wrap. He led with the shoulder. I'm not sure if there was head contact or if it just looked that way from the replays that they showed. But he was very, very lucky to only get a yellow card for that. It could have easily been a red. And look, Sexton has been targeted throughout his career. He's not the physically biggest player in the world. He's not the most muscular player in the world. And I think, look, throughout his career, he's been targeted as a soft touch, and he's not. He is well able to take a tackle and get back up after it. Now, having said that, the man is 36 years old. He'll be 37 in July. 36 is very much in my rearview mirror. And if I took a hit like that when I was 36, I wouldn't have gotten up. And I certainly wouldn't have been able to take anything approaching a place kick. Just going back to what you said about the kicks that he missed, I thought it was a little interesting that he missed in the first half, and like he was kicking into the end of the stadium with the lower roof, lower ceiling. I'm not sure what you'd call it, where the wind. Yeah. That's where I was, and the wind was quite strong there the whole way through the game. But for the second half, when he was kicking into the South Terrace, he changed his kicking style a little bit, and I thought he was trying to keep the ball a little bit lower, like obviously still high enough to clear the crossbar, but he wasn't aiming for the top of the post. He was aiming for a little bit lower down, maybe halfway down. And I think he had a better kicking percentage in the second half. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing him, nailing everything next weekend in Paris.
Absolutely. Yeah, I suppose, Liam, Andrew Conway, it was a superb performance from him, given the front foot ball that the back three were getting here. 2 tries, and 2 very different tries, I thought, as well, from Conway. What was your viewpoint of it? They were very impressive efforts, I thought.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, Conway, what did you make? He made something like 47 metres, serious yardage there. Yeah, he did an awful lot to do, actually, for his first try, didn't he? Like, really to try and hit that corner there. And I mean, in terms of, was it a try? I mean, it basically, he outstretched his arm as far as he can and placed it down. And, there was no, to my mind, there was no real question in that. And it was just the lead up to the try, I think. That was basically the big carrying there. Byrne was very prominent in that as well. So that was one good one. And then obviously the next one was just Gibson Park, just really glorious pass out, and he just nothing much to do there really, just tap it down. Yeah, but pretty impressed actually. Yeah,
I thought it was just that. I think, Joe, you alluded to the quick ruck ball that was being presented here to Gibson Park. I'd say couldn't believe his luck here, because I think we would have felt before the game Wales were going to basically be competitive in the breakdown. They did name Jenkins, they named Basham, they named Wainwright, so it looked like a very mobile, very powerful back row unit, but I didn't think they had a real chance here, just given the performance of Van der Fleer. The All-Leinster back row was kind of imperious, and I suppose, Joe, Ringrose's try was kind of real testament to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and look, again, I'm not sure how it looked on the telly, but to me, it's all of the action seemed to be down the opposite end of the pitch to where I was sitting in the second half. So I was disappointed with that. But it was just constant pressure. Like, genuinely, Wales barely saw the Ireland half of the pitch. I mean, again, if you're being picky, you could say that we should have come away with more than 29 points that we did. But look, I think the conditions played their part in that. And look, as bad as Wales are, they're still a good team. They're not the kind of team that gives up 30 or 40 or 50 points every game, and we did get 29 against them. As regards Ringrose's try, I thought it was just rewards for the play that had come before it. I thought it was just constant pressure from Ireland, and it paid off when he crossed the line for the try. I think that 12 and 13 axis, Aki and Ringrose. I don't some people still can't decide if Aki is best placed as number 12 or on the wing, but the two of them play very well together, and I think having that settled partnership is something that, I'm not saying we haven't had it in a while, but we haven't had two players that play as well together as they do in a while. Now, it might count against Aki that he doesn't play for the same team as Ringrose, but that's international rugby. That's where it comes down to the coach to get them to work together. And they do seem to have a great relationship, a great partnership. I expect them both to start again next weekend.
Exactly. I suppose, Liam, it's that cohesiveness I thought was very impressive from Ireland, because usually in the opening round of a Six Nations tournament, you'd kind of see drop balls, particularly penalty discipline not being quite there. But the fact that Ireland didn't concede a penalty until minute 53, and the amount of clean line breaks that Ireland had created, I think 12 and 13 played a huge part in that. What do you think of their performance in the three quarters?
Oh yeah, they look like a proper partnership that's been playing for years, and that's the best compliment you can give to them. Aki was just so incisive, in his running. It's something that you might expect from Ringrose, but one of the moments of the match for me was just before the Ringrose try, and the kind of the turnover and Hansen to Aki and away, and those two as well, obviously in the game played very well. Hansen outside Aki as well. So and Ringrose has been there for years, hasn't quite hit the heights maybe that we'd expect from him, but he's still scored a lot of tries and really powerful player. Yeah.
Exactly. And I suppose it's squad depth. You mentioned Henshaw there as well, guys. James Hume was on the bench and got a valuable 25 minutes under his belt on Saturday as well. We do seem to have an awful lot of units now where there's an awful lot of squad depth competition suddenly emerged. Three quarters would be one of the case in points, but even I'm looking at our back three now. The players that were left out, you would think in a typical season they would be kind of first team starters. So it must bode very well for Andy Farrell and the management to have these decisions to make going into the test match against France at the weekend, Joe.
Good point, Mark. And when you look at the players that came on, you would think that Cian Healy would be a starter. Peter O'Mahony probably, mightn't be in everyone's first starting 15, but he would be in the conversation. Conor Murray, again, a Lions, went on the Lions tour, and again, someone you'd expect to start. Not just them coming on, but when they came on, there was no downturn in play. You still felt like that this is the strongest 15 as we can put out, and it's going to be interesting how the coach reacts to how they played, how the team changed when they did come on, and how it's going to influence his team when it's announced later this week. Honestly, I genuinely don't know. If I had to be hypercritical, I'd start Murray ahead of Gibson Park, but I think it would be experience would be the decider there, because Gibson Park did absolutely nothing wrong. Did nothing wrong against Wales. Cian Healy possibly coming into the front row, but again, you couldn't fault anything that was done by the Porter in the 60 plus minutes that he was on the pitch. I honestly think that the result on Saturday could potentially decide the tournament. If we get a win in Paris, are we following that up with Italy at home, and we'd expect us to win that. It'll be 3 wins with England already on the back foot after losing against Scotland, and then our could set everything up for the last game for Ireland will be against Scotland on what will be a 4-day weekend in Ireland, and that could be some celebration.
Exactly. Liam, do you see any changes here on the 23-man squad going to France, given how dominant this performance was? I don't think, and look, the Basham try, I know there was a little bit of over-elaboration, but I think at that stage, confidence was quite high. So maybe it's a bit of a lesson learned here heading into Paris. But I think 23-man squad-wise, you'd be hard-pressed to tap one of these guys on the shoulder to say, oh, by the way, you've been dropped this weekend.
No, you couldn't say that. And look, I suppose we have to say this as a Munster man. Sometimes people are always saying, this player should come in and that. But we cannot argue with that 23. Cannot argue. at a push, maybe I'd be saying something like put Mike Lowry in at 23, or Earlsey if he was still available, for Hume. I'd say that'd be about the most you could push it at the moment, you know. In terms of like props, yeah, I think actually, yeah, Healy certainly could have the start. Beelum is a bit just not quite at the level of Furlong, so I would leave the rest of the front row there as well. And if Henshaw, again, I don't know what the situation is with his injury, was available, you could still, you know, look at maybe Henshaw going onto the bench at least.
Yeah, I'd say train this week is going to be ferocious here, particularly with like Robbie Henshaw. Be interesting to see what the status of Ian Henderson here as well, because I know Rob Herring, Keith Earls have been, are not going to be available for selection in Paris anyway, which kind of explains a few things. I know Dave Heffernan, Connacht Rugby, has been drafted in to the Ireland squad, but Henderson's probably a close watch just to see. And I think game management wise, it'd be nice to see Henderson maybe not coming in this weekend, but definitely in rounds 3 or 4 to kind of supplement that workload with James Ryan and maybe Tyburn as well to manage game minutes. So yeah, I mean, quite a convincing performance. I don't know where Wales go to from here, to be perfectly honest, after last weekend, but they do have Scotland coming to the Principality Stadium, so that'll be an interesting watch. I suppose, guys, I suppose we're talking about Le Bleu, France. It'll be interesting just to kind of see what France come up with in terms of their 23-man squad, because again, there was a few left field decisions from Galtier, even though Galtier wasn't there due to COVID-19 reasons. I don't know if you saw the match against Italy, but I think Italy gave us a little bit of hope, particularly in that first 25-30 minutes, in terms of being competitive and, you know, being pretty accurate. They were 10-3 up at one point, so I don't know what our impressions are of France after the first round of the tournament, Liam.
I only saw the actual some of the try score myself, but France against Italy, again, to be fair, it's first up for them as well, you know, and they're trying to get into the rhythm. And the usual France-Italy games, France do pull away in the second half, and you know that's ultimately what happened. But yeah, I mean, they still have to decide about out half, you know, are still going to keep rotating players, and they have such a wealth of prop strength as well. I mean, they could change the props as well, to be honest with you. I think that's something that will probably be looked at as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be absolutely ferocious in it, that front five battle, particularly just in terms of, you know, that scrum, that set piece, that line-out. I thought went relatively well for Ireland last weekend against Wales. Pretty good. I think it was a 93% hit rate on the line-out. But I think that will definitely be, dare I say, challenged by France. And particularly the back three, you know, all the media will have gone to Villiers for the 3 tries, 13 carries, 83 metres. But I thought Pinot, from start to finish, just exuded class. We'd mentioned it, Liam, on the programme here a few weeks ago when Ulster played ASM, Clermont Auvergne. He nearly single-handedly turned that game around, you know, and he was so emphatic. I mean, you know, 8 carries, 72 metres, and a gorgeous try as well in the second half to really kind of blow that game. But I suppose from an Italy standpoint, poor old Varney probably is having nightmares over that kind of pass that he made there in the first half to allow Genoa to literally go in unopposed. Horrific mistake, really, given the Italian work rate to then. But again, I think we know what we're going to get from France here. If they get any kind of quick ruck ball, they're going to look to be creative at all times. I mean, you know, their November international performance against New Zealand probably was the standout November international series performance. So, but I think there are still things to kind of maybe exploit from an Ireland perspective, given the brand of rugby that Ireland are playing here, the cohesiveness, the game plan, the speed of pass. I think it's a very intriguing game, to be perfectly fair.
I think in terms of as a game, I mean, you're looking at 2 of the leading contenders, you know, a year and a bit out from the World Cup. And I think it's a game that, you know, honestly, considered how well both teams did in the autumn, I think it could be a 50-50 game. I think it's on one kick. That's how close I'll call it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think breakdown officiating is going to be absolutely huge on the day. Yeah, I mean, Joe, what are your kind of overriding feelings here heading into this Paris game? You know, France coming on the back of that 37-10 win over Italy yesterday. I don't know what's your thoughts there. We're kind of thinking it's pretty much a 50-50 game here. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, after the opening rounds of the tournament, you'd have to say that Ireland and France are the two favourites. We don't know how Scotland are going to fare next weekend against Wales, and obviously Wales are not going to take a defeat lying down, and their home fans are not going to let them, give up a loss to Scotland. If you look at it kind of in the long-term view, France have been building to the World Cup next year pretty much since before the last World Cup in 2019 ended, and they want to put their stamp on the Six Nations this year and next year, ahead of the World Cup in France in towards the end of next year, and I think beating Ireland, the newly ranked third side in the world, is definitely going to help that. I genuinely don't know how the game is going to go. I thought France were a bit conservative against Italy. I think Italy's early try might have knocked them off their pace as well next weekend. And maybe subconsciously they were targeting the Ireland game anyway. It was a case of, look, let's just turn up, beat Italy, and then we can worry about Ireland next weekend. I think it's good. I think it could possibly be the game that decides the tournament. Honestly, I think the winner of it, the winner of that fixture, will probably go on to win the Six Nations in 2022. It's going to be really close. I hate going to Paris almost as much as I hate going to Cardiff or to Twickenham. I kind of hate all the away games, to be honest, except Rome. But yeah, like I said, I think France are doing what they did in the build-up to the World Cup in New Zealand, to my mind anyway, in that they're preparing a young, talented, hungry side to win the World Cup. And I think, beating Ireland would be a massive step on it for them. I don't know. I don't see it being a blowout for either side. I think it could come down to less than 7 points. Look, the last game in Paris that had fans at it is remembered for Sexton's long range drop goal to win it, and that was a once in a career strike. The kind of moment that a player of only his quality can do, and even still he might only do it a handful of times in his career, and we were really lucky that he did it. He picked that moment to do it. It could be a moment of class on that level that decides the fixture.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Totally agree with you. It does have that feel, it's Super Bowl weekend coming up in America and the National Football League. I get the same sense with Ireland and France now. Given the way the results went, given how England were taken down late by Scotland, and no disrespect to Scotland here, but it does have a sense of a kind of a very, very marquee fixture about this one in Paris. Given whoever wins this has an enormous momentum going for the rest of the tournament. I thought at the start of the tournament that a Grand Slam might be out of the question, but I think whoever wins this, creates, unassailable momentum going into the rest of the tournament. And to be fair to France, it's going to be fascinating at their team selection. Like Dante came into the three quarters instead of Fakatoa, and I thought he was very explosive, particularly in the second half, particularly when the rain kind of relented a bit. 6 carries for 31 metres. And I thought Aldred from La Rochelle, number 8, was absolutely huge in the game. 80 metres, he had 11 tackles. The offload for one of the tries was absolutely exquisite. And I think from a back row perspective for Ireland, Aldred really is the pulse for France, particularly in the pack. If Aldred is going well, I think the rest of the French pack is going well. So I think it's going to be an awful lot of intriguing matchups. I suppose, guys, while we're kind of talking about these games next weekend, can I get your heads on the block time just in terms of the games on tap for next weekend, round 2? Wales v Scotland. Wales obviously reeling after that Dublin performance. And as well as that, the under-20s got absolutely hammered, as you said, Joe and Liam, at the start of the podcast, 53 points shipped there. Wales versus Scotland. Scotland have a horrendous record in Principality Stadium, but do you feel that this may be a golden opportunity for Scotland to get one over on Wales, Liam?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, a horrendous record. But I mean, we talk about the match the weekend, the France-Ireland. Scotland have something going as well. Like if they can get 2 in a row, and they will have serious momentum as well. And it's one of those kind of years where they could come out of nowhere, out of left field. At the same time, Wales at home against anyone always have a chance, pretty much. They're still going to be missing those key players. Scotland, I think Finn Russell could have one of those special games. And I just get the feeling that Scotland will actually quite comfortably, I think maybe 2-score win at the weekend against Wales in Principality.
Yeah. Joe, what's your reading on that game in the Principality Stadium? You feel that there's a bit of a response in Wales, or do you reckon that Finn Russell runs bar a long overdue win in Cardiff for Scotland?
I think there'll have to be a response from Wales, because if there isn't, then they're going to have to take a serious long-term view at the rest of the tournament, because they'll be effectively out after 2 losses. They'll be doing extremely well to turn around and win the championship after that. Look, Scotland are going to be on a massive high after beating England. I think most teams are on a high after beating the old enemy. But not just the win, but retaining the Calcutta Cup in front of their home fans. The atmosphere was absolutely fantastic on the telly. Going to the Millennium Stadium, facing Wales in their home ground with that crowd behind them is going to be a different prospect. But I do think Scotland could come away with a win. It's probably their strongest team in a long, in a very long time. And as I say, Wales just look, I don't know. It just looks like it's one of the worst Welsh teams I've ever seen. They looked, they looked like all they were trying to do against Ireland was keep the score down more than anything else. And I don't think they'll be able to do that next weekend. They will have to go for the win, or else their fans aren't going to let them defend in their own half. And I think that's going to play into Scotland's hands. Now, without going into too much depth or too much into the Scotland game, a lot of people are saying they only won because of the penalty try that was awarded against England for something that I'm not sure I've ever seen in a rugby match. But the fact of the matter is that they won. They won't care how or why they won. All they care about is that win. And it could be the same in Cardiff. If they walk out of there with a 1 or a 2 point win, they won't care about that 1 or 2 points. They will care about the win. And knowing that they've France to come in the third round at home. A win. Going into that with 2 wins. Again with their home fans behind them, they'll be set up really nicely for the rest of the tournament. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you never go poor betting against Scotland, but I think I am going to give them the nod for next weekend.
Yeah, I think for me, hesitant nod, and I think it's just purely on that Finn Russell. I think their back three as well could exploit an awful lot of space defensively from Wales. I think it'll be closer than people may think, though. I think there is a response definitely in Wales. And I think hesitant nod because of the very previous road trips Scotland have had down to Cardiff. It's been an unmitigated nightmare in recent fixtures where we've expected Scotland to perform and be competitive and be blown out of the water. So I think this one will probably be a tight, exciting game, to be fair. Italy, England on Sunday, guys, in Rome. And to be fair, I'll start here with Italy. I was pleasantly surprised by Italy, particularly their pack platform. They went, 6 from 600 scrums. Set piece was pretty good functioning as well. And they showed a bit of flair in the first 25, 30 minutes. I think the first French try absolutely killed them. But they have something to build on here. England come to town, and to be fair, any side, worth their salt test match, if you have 62% territorial advantage or possession in a test match, you should be winning that test match. So I think Italy are probably up against it. But Liam, who do you reckon between Italy and England?
Yeah, for sure. But like in terms of Italy, it's their first home game of the tournament and their second overall, and that usually indicates that Italy for the first 2 games are actually competitive. So it's not like later on in the tournament where you're pretty much guaranteed a collapse. So it won't be a cakewalk for England in that sense. It'll be a lot closer than people think. England, England, that was like an absolute disaster for them to start off the tournament with that defeat. It'll be interesting to see if they make any significant changes. And I think England will pull away in the second half. I think I give maybe 20 points to England at the end of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, what's your reading on it?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with the two of you lads. Like I said, France might have been caught unawares by Italy in the opening exchanges, which led to their try. But I don't think England will be. Look, they're going to be smarting after losing in Edinburgh, and unfortunately, Italy are going to be deer in the headlights. And I just think England are going to probably. I think they might struggle in the first half to put significant distance between them, but over the 80 minutes, the class is going to show. And yeah, England by 20 points. I think is probably going to be it.
Yeah, I think some of the key questions for England here, I think, is a three-quarters balance. I thought it was completely off with Slade and Daly at 12-13. I thought Joe Marchant was a much better option at 13, a more direct ball runner with Slade as playmaker. And I think they're going to have a decision in terms of how they attack teams in an opposition 22. Too many of the times they seem to not want to bring ball into contact. These little rubber kicks were fine for the first 5-10 minutes, but when there was no plan B, there was no evolution. And as I said, when you have 62% territory against Scotland defended manfully on the day, I think there is still a few kind of key kind of tactical issues. I mean, the only time that England really kind of played ball through the hands was Marcus Smith's try. It was actually a lovely line from Marcus Smith for the try, but that was it. I didn't see much in terms of attacking threat there. Maybe the odd Simmons kind of big ball carry from 8, but I think, as you say, guys, it may be a bit of a slow slog here for England initially, but they will probably secure the bonus point. But hopefully we see a little bit more progression from Italy here. They had some pleasing aspects in that performance in Paris. I thought their try was very well worked considering the conditions. It was a great diagonal kick from Garbisi to Meloncello. So I think from that perspective, I think, maybe an Italian loss, but I think hopefully they'll produce another good performance. So with that being said, Liam, I think you have maybe one or two kind of comments here regarding Munster Rugby. Again, we had kind of news of some contract renewals, but I think there's a bit of speculation with Malachi Fekitoa is going to be obviously a Munster player next season, which is great news. But we're kind of seeing some rumours in terms of maybe Bat Rugby looking to kind of maybe poach one of the squad at the moment.
Yeah, that's the rumour anyway. Yeah, I mean the thing with Clotty is he's going anyway, and good luck to him. He's been a great servant for Munster Rugby. It's just what leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth is when your own head coach is already planning to swipe some of the players for rugby, and that's, I suppose, a noble question. So yeah, I mean that's something that's kind of a bit uncomfortable, I think, isn't it?
I think so. Joe, what would be your feeling there? But I suppose it's professional sports at the end of the day, isn't it?
Van Graan is leaving. We've known that for a while now, but he is still employed by Munster Rugby. To speak about one of his players playing for his future club feels a little bit disrespectful. I don't know, to put it a different way, how would he feel about if he was asked what players he's going to be selling from Bath? Or if it was one of the, say, a Leinster, Connacht or Ulster player that he'd be interested in taking to Bath. Ask him about Bat Rugby when he's managing Bat Rugby, and I think he should only respond to questions about Bat Rugby when he's managing or coaching Bat Rugby. So yeah, I mean, I will be sorry to see him go. I think he might have taken the team as far as he can, and it, as well as that, I think a change of scenery might be better for his career, his coaching career, and we don't know what his long-term ambitions are. Maybe managing or coaching South Africa, maybe coaching one of the Six Nations, look, you kind of hope that when a manager, what's the old saying, debt, taxes, and managers getting the sack. But you'd hope that when a manager does leave, he leaves, with a touch of class, and respect for the job that he's had and the fans that have watched him play his team play over the last number of years. Yeah, maybe this is going to leave a bit of a sour taste. Look, it could all be forgotten in 4 or 5 months' time when he does finish his tenure at Munster Rugby. But right now, yeah, it feels a bit disrespectful.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think, but it's all part and parcel of professional sports as well. And I think with Chris Cloethe, I think we're blessed with the back row value options that we have now coming through our academy. I'm thinking of Cadellin here. I'm thinking of O'Sullivan. I'm thinking of Hodnett. I'm thinking of, Coombs. Guys like that are going to have to get game time. So, in fairness to Chris, he owes the club absolutely nothing. He's looking for probably, and the last contract with a view maybe to doing some coaching in Bath Rugby as well. And, another kind of loyal servant or lieutenant for Van Grand to build a management around in Bath next season. So I think best of luck. But my only fear is that he's looking to delve into the academy or looking at a few underage stars as well here within the province. And then that's where the issue really kind of comes in here. But I think I haven't heard much else in terms of other people maybe departing for Bath from Munster Rugby. But I think from that perspective, it's an interesting watch. And I suppose, as we said here, Liam, in previous weeks, we're going to get an avalanche of player announcements and departures, particularly from the provinces, particularly in the Gallagher Premiership, top 14, probably in the next few weeks, setting expectations. And I think Damien Delende, an announcement's probably going to be due pretty quickly, given Malachi Fekitoa's decision to come to Munster. I don't know, guys, your initial reaction to that signing, positive?
Fekitoa, yeah, I mean, as a player, just class, But his injury record is, to say the least, questionable. And, God, we've been unlucky with Sneeman and other players as well. It just hasn't worked out. And, it's his 2 shoulder injuries. That's for a centre is kind of a bit questionable. So, good player, but doubts about him, has to be said.
I'm kind of with you, Liam, on this one as well. I'm really excited by the signing. I should be jumping up and down. I just have the sense, your medical report-wise, have you really done the full research and analysis on the player, particularly on his Wasps cameos this season? One was in start of season, another one was kind of just before the end of the year. He just seems to be having these niggles. I'm just hoping it's not a Jason Jenkins signing again, where high hopes, high expectations. I think with RG Schneiman, it's just cruel luck really on RG Schneiman's part that he's gone down with the knee injuries he has in Munster, because I think his fitness issues prior to Munster were non-existent. I think Jenkins is probably one where you kind of there's a few niggles here and it's continued in Munster. I'm just hoping for Munster, we can't afford another marquee import signing to be as ineffective as a Jason Jenkins has been this season. Maybe brutally harsh, but I think that is the case, So that would be my only fear. I think Fekitoa, literally, if he was fully fit, powerful ball carrier, aggressive defender, there's an awful lot of upside there, but I think there are question marks. Joe, what's your reaction?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. On face value, he's the kind of signing that you want to see come to Munster Rugby, the kind of player that you would hope would bring them to the next level, and maybe the kind of player they haven't been able to bring in a while. On the other side of things, look, his injury record is somewhat suspect, and if he's going to spend more time in the treatment room than on the pitch, then what's you'd want to know the reasoning behind the signing. Look, if it works out, obviously, we're all going to be delighted, but we've been stung by players like that. If you want to go all the way back to Christian Cullen, who came in with an amazing record, but unfortunately just unable to deliver. Look, we'll just have to wait and see.
Lads, we'll leave it there anyway. And I think in news and brief, really, kudos to the Ireland under-20s, 53 points over the Welsh under-20s. Quick soundbite as well to Ulster Rugby. They're top of the URC overall standings. A very good 32-12 win over Connacht Rugby at Kingspan on Friday night. And then, as well as that, we may have to give a plug to Portugal as well, guys. Tier 2 rugby. It was a very entertaining game on Sunday against Georgia, and they managed to get a 25-point all draw there, which is a very marquee result, I think, for Portugal, because everyone does assume that Georgia are that team that's hovering between Tier 2 and Six Nations, and it's very good to see a team like Portugal really provide a competitive outing there in Tbilisi. So congratulations to Portugal and upward and onwards there. Guys, we leave it there. Liam, thanks very much for the insight and contribution, and many thanks to Joe here for joining us tonight. You can follow Joe on Irish Abroad on Twitter, and all general musings there. But many thanks, guys, and I suppose I speak for both of you. Looking forward to the weekend ahead. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.